As you can see by the title, I'm going to be teaching you how to turn any pair of jeans into something more swaggy. I've upcycled and sold over 100 pairs of jeans, so I basically mastered the art of upcycling jeans. So if there's any video you should watch on upcycling jeans, it should be this one. As you can see here, I brought this bad pair of jeans to life. Here we got this perfect hem right here. Perfect on the inside, perfect on the outside. And even the crotch is just done beautifully. So I do a lot of talking in this video, so I recommend watching the whole video first before you actually start making anything, just so you're able to really understand every step of the way. I'm not one to waste anybody's time, so I'm gonna get right into the video.
So what you'll need is 2 pairs of jeans, fabric scissors, pins or clips. Various measuring tools are useful. Seam ripper, iron, Sharpie or chalk works as well, and then thread snippers will also help. Pause the video here and come back when you have all these things. And you'll obviously need a sewing machine. A serger is optional, but obviously you don't need a serger. Your piece will be fine without it. So the first step is to measure the leg opening of your pants. Mine is about 8.5 inches. Once you have your leg opening, I want you to write it down. So now you will be determining how big the width of your panel will be. Really pay attention to this part. This is all personal preference, but for me, I want my new leg opening to be 12.5 inches. So what you do now is you take your new leg opening and you subtract your original leg opening. So that gives me 4. Now what you want to do is you want to multiply that by 2, which gives me 8. And now that I have 8, I like to add 2 inches for seam allowance, which gives me 10. Because in the end, you can always cut off some of your seam allowance. Or in my case, I'll be serging it off. So this number you get right here will be your width. You can go ahead and put this to the side now. The next step is to seam rip open the hem and the inseam. I like to start on the top stitch and rip out a couple of the stitches right on the top. As you can see, I'm only going under the stitch. So that has weakened the stitches. Now it should rip apart pretty easily. Kind of want to turn it inside out just at the bottom. Angle it like this, and you can kind of just rip through it. Now do this along the whole hemline for both legs. As you're going, it's helpful to pull it apart. Okay, now onto the next leg. Now we will be ripping open the inseam right here. Do the same thing you did with the hem. Get it in there and kind of just push through. Make sure you're ripping the threads and not the actual denim. Now that I've reached the end, you can see we've removed the original stitch. We're left with just the serging on the inside, which is pretty weak. First, use your seam ripper to kind of start it, and then you can rip this. If it feels too hard to rip, use your seam ripper because you don't want to rip the denim once again. Now you can see we've ripped open the inseam. What I like to do is pull these threads out, and I recommend going outside and giving this a really good shake to try to get as much of the little threads off as you can. Now you will be left with a lot of little threads. There really isn't any particular way to doing this. For me, I would just use my hands just to kind of pull each of these little threads out. You really don't have to get all of it, but try to get as much as you can. Here I'm kind of using some regular scissors to scrape these stitches off. Something that may also help a lot is getting a lint roller. This can help you get a lot of these loose threads off as well. Now that you have all your threads cleaned up, I want you to iron all of this flat. You should also iron the hem open as well. Now that everything is ironed flat, take that measurement from the crotch all the way down to the bottom. So for me, that measurement was 32. I recommend adding about an inch to that measurement. So that will be 33. Now you have your length of your panel. So that means our panel measurements will be 10 inches wide by 33 inches long. And this is what matters right here. It is time to move on to our other pair. First, you will start by simply just cutting the inseam all the way through. Now that you have cut open the inseam, simply just cut along this fly right here. Now do the same thing for the bottom side. Now that you have your pieces cut out, take one of your pieces and lay it out flat like this. Measure above the hem stitch right here. Mark the spot of your length measurement. Remember, mine was 33. I'll be marking a little line right here at 33. If your jeans aren't long enough, you may have to do it on the other side. So you will just have to seam rip this pocket off right here to create room. But since I have enough space, I'll just be marking it right here. Take a look at this seam line right here. Measure 1.5 inches away from your center seam line and put a mark right there. This little mark put on your hem will be the middle. Now take your width measurement. For me it was 10, divide that by 2. I got 5. I'll be putting the 5-inch mark right where my middle line is, right here. Then I will mark a line at the beginning edge right here. So right here, it will be 5 inches, and then you will go another 5 inches up, and that will be 10 right there. And these two markings right here will be the width of your panel. Next, you will be using this outseam as a guide. Look at your measuring tape once again. On my measuring tape, this part right here is 6.5 inches because remember we went 1.5 inches away from the seam line. Go up near the top. I'll be putting the 6.5 inch mark right on the seam line. Then I will mark my width once again. So here is the first edge of my width. Now here is the other edge of my width. Now from here, it's up to you to decide what the shape of your panel will look like. Since I will want mine to look a little more flared, I'll be taking these two lines in a little bit. I'll be taking this in about an inch. Same with the other side, about an inch. Now take your measuring stick, just mark a straight line from the bottom edge to the marking you just put. You will be doing that for both sides. So take a look at this marking right here. Remember, this is the 33-inch marking, which is my length. I'll be going 1.5 inches away from my seam line once again. Go to your 33-inch marking and just mark a vertical line like this, just so you know what the middle will be. Now from the middle of the top of your panel, I like to go an inch out on each side of the middle. Here's a little close-up of what the top of mine looks like. This is the middle, this is an inch out, and this is an inch out. Now all we have to do is connect this top part to these two lines right here. So I usually do it by eye. What I like to do is kind of curve it on the way down. So as you can see, I'm kind of just doing a little bit of a slanted curve. And now that it reached the line, I like to do a little marking directly on the other side. And now do exactly the same thing and make sure you're ending on that same marking so your panel will come out even. This is how it turned out. Now you're ready to just cut the whole thing out. Near the top, you will probably run into the pocket. Don't worry about that just yet. Just try to cut the whole thing out first. Now you can see my pocket is attached. Just kind of cut this off. Just get as close as the seam as you can and cut the pocket off. Now we have our first panel piece. Next, lay your other piece out. Get your panel piece you just cut out, lay it on top. Make sure you match the hems
and the seams of the pants. Here I'm kind of turning it over and making sure I'm matching the seam line. This is really important to just having it even. Now you can see I have the whole panel laid out with the seams matching. Now you just want to trace the whole panel out. Now that I've traced it all out, you can take this off and just cut this out. Now we have two identical panels right here. Take your two panel pieces to the iron, one facing up and one facing down, and you will iron about 1/2 inch inwards. Do that to both of them. Take this side, insert it over. As you can see, it's kind of doing this right here. And just fold it over like that. On both sides, it should look clean with no raw edges. You can go ahead and pin this down. Take it to your sewing machine and you will just stitch along the edge right here. Now go over on the other side. Make sure you are catching this bottom edge right here as well. Now you have attached these two panels together. Now take your original pair of jeans, lay them out like this, and then take your two sewn panels together. Just put that right where this seam is on the original pair of jeans. Then put a pin there to stabilize it. At this point, you can also use clips, but I will be showing you how to use the pins because I know many of y'all won't have clips. Next, you will pin all the way down, start from the middle, and make your way down to each leg. And now pin the other side. Once again, I am pinning right sides together. Now that you have it all pinned down, you are ready to sew. What I recommend doing is seeing where the unfaded part is. You don't want to stitch too close to that or else you'll get the dark blue on the right side of the denim. But keep in mind we did add a 1-inch seam allowance, so when you're sewing near where the hem will be, keep that 1-inch seam allowance, and then once you get further down, you don't really have to worry too much about the seam allowance because you can always cut it. Or in my case, I'm going to serge it. As I'm sewing, I'm keeping that 1-inch seam allowance. Now that I've gotten past the hem, don't really have to worry too much about the seam allowance. Just make sure you're not stitching on top of this blue and like about right here. As we're approaching this part right here where the two flat-felled seams meet, go a little slower because you don't want to break a needle. I like to use the hand wheel just so I can control it even better. Also on this part, I recommend back stitching a few times because it is the crotch and it does need some more stability. Now that we're approaching the hem on the other leg, go back to that 1-inch seam allowance. Now I'll be sewing the other side. Next, I'm going to serge it. Once again, you don't have to serge it, but I'm just going to be doing it because it does make your piece a lot cleaner on the inside. You can either serge the two pieces together like this, or you can serge it like this. If you serge them both together, on the right side you will have this sort of like little hump. If you were to serge them separately, press them separately, it'll be more flat like this. The crotch is the hardest part to serge. My serger is able to do it. Some sergers may not be strong enough to. If you can't serge through this, I would definitely recommend doing both separately because that will be 2 times as less bulk. Next step is to take it to the iron and press it. If you were to just do a regular plain seam like this, you would simply just press the seam open. And that's what I mean by pressing the seam open. Now your jeans should be looking a little something like this.
To do the hem, just get a roller or something with a flat edge. Line it up on both edges right here. Sometimes it'll be a little slanted. If it is, that doesn't really matter. Draw a line right across right here. Next step is just to cut right along this line. Now you will take it back to the iron. Start pressing the first fold of the hem. As you're getting to this part, use the original hem as a guide. Once you've pressed the first fold, fold it again. Now press the second fold. If you want, you could always pin this down before sewing, but since I pressed it really well, I'm not gonna pin it down. Now that we have the hems pressed, it's time to start sewing. Just sew along this edge all the way down. And now we have a beautiful hem. Go ahead and trim your threads. One last thing I'd recommend doing is just pressing the top side of the denim.
So here is the final product. Not too shabby at all. Here you can see we added all this bagginess right here, so it'll be making it fit a lot better. I'm gonna go ahead and try these on for y'all. Here's a quick little on body of these. As you can see, they fit really nice, really wide. The side looks great as well. Here's a little bit of back shot action. So that's pretty much it for the video. I thank y'all for watching, and I hope this helped you out a lot. Go follow my Instagram. If you saw this video and you used it to make a pair of jeans, I want you to DM me and show me what y'all have made. Love when y'all take inspiration from my videos. It really warms my heart. It's just always nice to see y'all doing new things and stepping out your zone because of what I do. So don't be afraid to try new things. This may look hard at first, but it's always good to learn a new skill. Anyways, I hope y'all have a great day, and peace.